like, hurry, I need to get the pen over again.
Okay, great. All right, we'll call this meeting to order. Can I have our roll call, please?
Aiken?
Here.
Bear? Here. Harness? Here. Lee?
Here.
Scarborough?
Here.
Kenworthy?
Here.
And Tobias?
Here. We can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We could actually just continue standing for just a moment. We've had, just like to have a moment of silence. Most of you know that we've had some losses in our community and wanted to remember Christopher Rue, Chris Young, Councilmember Bears had a family loss member. And just if we could just take a moment and bow our heads for a moment. Amen. Okay, thank you. First item, we have the minutes of December 13th in our special meeting.
Motion to approve minutes, December 13th.
Second.
A motion seconded by Kat. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll go to our next item, which is citizens' time. If anyone would like to address the council, if they could come up and speak, just the name and address for the record.
Hi, John Cole, 6757 Fayette Street. Happy New Year.
Happy
New Year.
The construction in Gainesville is coming right along. It looks like it's on schedule. The grade separation is getting done. So the quiet zone effort needs to continue. This is the no train whistle through town. We sent the letter of intent a little over a year ago. And so when the construction is finished at the grade separation in Gainesville, then we can declare the quiet zone. I, however, am not a town official. I need a town official to take this, some intrepid soul to take this on, and I will help you. But it means more if a town official does it, and I just need one of you to volunteer to do this. So we can set up a time, I can walk you through the process and give you all my files, and even help you write the letter of, not letter of intent, but the declaration letter and that sort of thing. And it's not, doesn't have to be done next week. We've got about 14 to 18 months. So I'm giving you plenty of time. Okay? So if anybody wants to call me, Jennifer's got my contact information. I don't need you to leap up and volunteer tonight.
I'm about to volunteer somebody. Let's just have Marchant do it as part of the planning office.
Okay.
Marchant, would you mind working with Mr. Cole in regards to facilitating the development and implementation of the quiet zone for the train tracks?
Okay. There will need to be either a council member or someone signing the letters,
Well, he's the town's planner.
but he's not a representative from the town. It would be better if we...
I'll sign whatever he prepares.
Okay?
Yeah. All right. Thanks, John.
As the vice mayor, is that good enough?
Yeah.
All right.
Anybody else like to address the council?
I don't know if this is a town issue or a VDOT issue, so I think I'm asking for y'all's help or maybe look into it. But I'm Ken Schick from 14780 Jordan Lane. The power company buried some power lines right in the ditches along the road, and basically there's a pond there now that hasn't drained, and what used to be a ditch is a pond, so I'm wondering if maybe, somebody can look into that so they can fix the ditch, and so I don't have a mosquito factory right outside my front door this summer.
Understood.
That's it.
Okay. Absolutely. Thank you. Anybody else like to address the council?
I do have a letter to Rena Lau that she had requested that it was read aloud.
Okay.
Yeah, that was for the December meeting. Can we just enter that in the record, please? I mean, it was wanted to be read aloud for December 3rd. It's now, let's just enter it in the record. The records are kind of open for inspection if anybody else has any objection,
No objection.
for the sake of time.
And moving along, uncollectible monies.
Basically, my interpretation of all this is after a review and updating of our software, they have uncovered a sum of monies that have accumulated over the last 6 or 7 years, or close to 10 years, depending on whose math you're using, where accounts receivable line items in QuickBooks had some miscellaneous offsets, debits, and credits. The CPA and our auditors have spoken to our town staff in facilitating the implementation of the new accounting system, and it suggested that we just write these off as uncollectible debts. Not all of it is actually technically uncollected debts, but some of it's miscellaneous pluses and minuses, slight overpayments and slight underpayments, et cetera, that have occurred over the course of time. So the motion was supposed to be drafted for us by our attorney. And the motion would be authorize the CPA auditor tax collector to write off an amount of $3,869.46 as uncollectible debt pursuant to recognized accounting practices and federal and state laws. This amount is deemed uncollectible due to the longevity of the debt, entry error, and the nature of the smaller invoices, which would not be ripe for collection actions.
Okay, so it's in form of a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Aiken.
Yes.
Bear. Yes. Harness. Yes. Scarborough.
Yes.
Kenworthy.
Yes.
And Tobias.
Yes.
Great. All right. Villages of Haymarket, Phase 2.
Good evening, council members. This is for a 5-lot single-family subdivision on Blight Drive adjacent to the Harover properties. This preliminary plan was approved in January of 2012. This came out of the commission in December with a recommendation of approval contingent upon language regarding meeting the town's lighting requirements, which the town attorney has reviewed. I understand that during the council work session there was a question about frontage improvements in support of the streetscape program that we have along Washington Street. The applicant's here tonight and can address the council's questions about that. There is a disagreement over the requirement for this developer, giving that it's frontage or it's being accessed from Blight Drive versus Washington Street. And again, they're here to answer any questions. Based on the council's conclusion of that discussion, we have draft language available for the council to take action if they wish to do so tonight. You do have 60 days to act from the commission's recommendation, so if you do need additional time, you do have that option. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Marshawn?
The applicant's here to address the council.
Great. Okay. Yeah.
Good evening, John McBride for the applicant. We do have the one disagreement on that one section, 53 linear feet of Washington Street. We both agree that frontage improvements can't actually be constructed, even if they were required, just because VDOT will not take them into the system because they do not connect to anything, because the town's property does not have these frontage improvements. We also agree that your ordinance can be interpreted two different ways. We think that it's not frontage under your ordinance. If you look at your subdivision ordinance definitions, frontage means that side of a lot abutting on a street or right-of-way and ordinarily regarded as the front of the lot. That phrase is somewhat unique to the town. Other jurisdictions say it differently. But what we think that means is you don't have two frontages on this lot. You only have one, which is Blight Street. We're doing all our frontage improvements under the ordinance. Staff points, so we have a disagreement with staff over that. Our position is these 5 single-family lots that have no access to Washington Street directly, we are doing the public improvements to Blight Street at our cost. We should not have to do Washington Street also. Now, what we are willing to do, because again, we'd like to resolve this and move forward, what we'd like to do is, staff points to the streetscape along Washington Street as being the major thing that they would like a future construction escrow. And a future construction escrow is an amount of money that we would post that the town has to keep and keep track of because it's only used for Washington streetscape improvements in the future. So what I'm here to propose is Holly had worked up an estimate that all this is $15,000, which doesn't seem like a lot of money, but you have to remember all we're talking about is 5 single-family homes. So that's $3,000 right off the top that those home prices are increased. We don't think that 5 homes with no access to Washington should pay for the widening of Washington. That is a town-wide, that actually really is a VDOT-wide project. So $8,000 of that estimate was for the widening, the pavement widening, having nothing to do with streetscape, but the pavement widening for Washington Street. The $7,000 is attributable to the acorn light, the street trees, the brick sidewalk, things that the town would more likely be doing when it improves its property. I doubt and certainly hope the town's not going to have to foot the bill for widening Washington Street through that entire area. So what we propose is that your condition be amended to be just a flat contribution of the future construction escrow of $7,000 that these 5 single-family homes would pay. We would pay it at bonding of the project, which is in the motion. Be happy to answer any questions or try to explain our rationale further. I think it comes down to fundamental fairness. We're already doing improvements to Blight. We've already dedicated right-of-way for both Blight and Washington Street. So you will not need any more right-of-way on Washington Street to do the streetscape improvements in the future. We're contributing enough to actually do what I would say are the streetscape improvements. It's just the widening that we think is unfair for 5 homes to have to foot the bill for. Thank you.
Any questions?
You want to go first? You don't have any questions? No. John, you keep saying that this is for 5 homes, but in fact, this is for Phase 2 of the Villages, which incorporates numerous homes off of Blight Drive as well. So this is for the development, which is known as the Villages of Haymarket. This is
That's
just
correct.
Phase 2.
This is the final 5 homes in that development, but
Right.
there were plenty of public improvements done earlier with regard to that also.
I understand.
But you're correct.
Right, but we're not talking about 5 separate homes. We're talking about the complete development of the Villages of Haymarket.
That is correct. But who's going to be paying for it is those 5 lots.
Who's going to be paying for it will be the developer.
I
They
submit it's going to be...
can pass it on to whoever they want, but the developer will be paying for it.
Right.
As far as your statement that you don't believe that the 5 homeowners should have to pay for the improvements along the widening of Washington Street, that's neither here nor there. They're going to become residents of the town, and all the other developers have paid for it, whether or not they develop 5 houses, 10 houses, or 20. My question is, where did you come up with your $7,000 figure if the estimate from our engineer to complete the project was $15,000? Were you just picking a number that was almost half and shooting from the hip, or how did you come up with your $7,000 figure?
Because hers was $8,000 for the pavement, right?
$8,000 for the pavement?
Estimate was $8,000.
$7,000 for the sidewalk.
$7,000 is for the streetscape improvements. And actually, it does come to fundamental fairness. The other projects that have paid for that are larger projects that do have direct access off Washington Drive. They do get a benefit, really, from that frontage being improved because that's their front door. We're doing that on Blight Drive. It's not like we're not doing anything.
What type of sidewalk are you building on Blight Drive?
Blight Drive, we're doing the concrete. West side. because that's not in the town plan for the brick. I don't mean to be argumentative, Councilman.
I'm not taking you as being argumentative.
No, I just want to be clear that we think we're doing our fair share, and this is a little beyond it. We're willing to do the streetscape, and hopefully that's agreeable, and the council feels that's fair. Because to be candid with you, I don't think it's worth it for either side to argue the issue of what the ordinance says, because it truly
I
is.
definitely agree with that.
Truly is not the best ordinance language.
Any other comments or questions?
Holly, can you explain the widening to the council, what the street components are? There's the streetscapes part that is part that the ordinance requires, but then there's also, there's a necessity to widen based on that. It's basically how it's explained technically. Sorry for jumping in.
Back in 1996, when the streetscape program was established, preliminary line work was done to establish how many lanes you're going to have where. In front of this parcel, you're going to have 4 lanes and then a 5-foot bike lane on each side. Right now, that's not the width that you have out there. So what I did is I said if you assumed having to add 1 additional lane and a 5-foot bike lane over that length of frontage, that's how I came up with that $8,000 that we were talking about it within the estimate to get to what the 1996 plan called for. That's different because in your ordinances, it does just call for the brick sidewalk, the lighting, the street trees. Those were the other components that made up the $15,000 estimate. That estimate, I do want to point out, did not include engineering and didn't include drainage. Because I can't estimate that at this point. That was mainly just what a bond would be, what like a construction bond would be. Some of the question we were talking about beforehand is whether or not the sidewalk could be even constructed without the street widening. I think there would have to be some road work done. You definitely would have to do drainage to make sure the elevations and the swales and the existing ditches would work. But we don't have a plan for that. So I just tried to work off of a quick estimate. This is what was proposed to have this ultimate wide section, 4 lanes and 5-foot bike lanes, and I don't know if that's clear as mud. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Okay, any further discussion on this? Do we have a motion?
Mr. McBride, what does the developer anticipate the sales price of these homes to be?
We haven't gotten that far. We're going to be going to ARV later on, and that's going to drive that a little bit too.
Okay.
I'd like to discuss this in our closed session with legal counsel before making any action.
Okay. All right. No objection. We'll table this until after our closed session. All right. Moving along. Historic District. Mr. Weir.
Bob's in here. Bob, get the lights before you come up.
Evening all, thanks Jay for making me do this. You gonna run the clicker or not? I can. Back in November, you guys forwarded the Planning Commission for review. You wanted us to look at the Certified Local Government Program. And we did that, we looked at the initial, when we looked at the first page of what the program requirements are, 2 things jumped out at us immediately. In order to be eligible for the program, in order to be able to implement it, we have to have a criteria and procedure for identifying and establishing our historic district. We don't have that right now. As a result of those criteria and procedures, you would then have a clearly delineated boundary for that district. Our boundary encompasses the entirety of the town as the historic district. So we don't meet this fundamental criteria right off the bat for the Certified Local Government Program. We talked about this before, and that's exacerbated by where our district currently stands with regard to the underlying statutes in Virginia. CLG is basically a federal program that's given over to the State Historic Commission to run, but we also have to comport with the underlying statutes for establishing the historic district. Our language does not currently do that. Our boundaries are way too broad, and they need to be drawn to include, and I quote, those lands closely related to and bearing upon the character of historic site or sites within the town. That's straight out of the enabling legislation of the statute at the state code level. It's further complicated by the fact that historically we're not recognized as either a historic district or a historic landmark, and in some areas we've actually been deemed not truly worthy of historic preservation in the past. So we need to essentially excise from our historic district those areas that don't include or aren't closely related to the historic districts, or the historic sites that we currently have. And there'll be some argument as to what that does or doesn't involve, but that'll come at a later date. This is just a copy of the enabling statute, or the red portion. I can give this to you guys offline, but it's 15.22306, and this delineates what your historic district should be, at least by statute. These are all the certified local governments of Virginia. There's only 10 towns. I went ahead and I'm just going to quickly give you a view of 9 of the 10 towns' actual historic district maps. The only one I couldn't get was Pulaski's. Apparently they only have one copy of their historic district. It's a paper copy and they can't even fax it. Walk up in the 21st century. This is Abingdon. It's not really clear, but the district is actually about 3/4 of the page. The green section in the center is the limit of their historic district. As an example, this one is a fairly large historic district as regards to the rest of the towns in the state. The blue line is the entirety of the border of the town of Blacksburg. Again, you can't see it because it's not coming up very clearly, but that circled area is that little square at the bottom. That's the extent of their historic district in Blacksburg. It's a very small portion of the town. Come on.
Yeah, somehow you right-click.
This is Cape Charles. I don't know why it's showing up like this, but that squared-in area, that boxed-in area at the top, the green section is their historic district. The entirety of the map is the town. So again, it's a very, very small portion, or a relatively small portion of the entirety of the town. There's Culpeper. The red district is the entirety of their historic district. We've heard a lot about Culpeper over the years. That's how small it is. It's roughly 6 square blocks. The town of Herndon, that's it on the left. And it goes with those circles over on the right. This is Leesburg. That's the entirety of the historic district. It all falls within that circle. Even Middleburg is a relatively small portion. It's most of the Main Street. I think March on it. We'll talk more to this. They're principally a residential district on the western end, goes outside of the historic district. This is Purcellville. Those little areas are all within the large green block, within the large green outline of the extent of it. This is the historic district of Smithfield. It all falls within that little circle there. Similarly, Warrenton is about maybe a quarter, maybe a fifth of the town. And that just gives you a kind of a sense of what the other towns in the state have done that are actually CLG approved. There are multiple benefits for us reducing the size of the historic district above and beyond strictly the CLG. The more defined and compact historic district is necessary if you guys want to pursue CLG accreditation. The more defined and compact historic district would be a true overlay district and would allow for greater flexibilities in many other areas of our zoning text. For example, we have issues with signage and allowable uses that if we had a more defined, more compact historic district, we could actually address by using it as an overlay district. The more defined and compact historic district would eliminate the requirement for many residents and businesses outside of that area to have to go through the COA procedure. It will reduce the number of COA filings in theory, and have some relative cost savings there. So that's another consideration for it. We looked at this last year, and this was the text that was considered, and ultimately, I think it died on a 3-3 vote. But it's something that we should revisit. I'm just giving this to you as a baseline, something to start from. The long and the short of it is this. The Planning Commission needs some commitment from the majority of council as to pursuing a reduction in the size of the historic district. If we don't get some sense from council that there's support for that, or there ideally even a mandate to explore it and draft a revision to both the map and the zoning text, quite frankly, I don't think we're going to expend a whole lot of resources pursuing CLG because it's DOA. I don't think there's any way that we could recommend pursuing CLG status without some dramatic changes to both the text and the map. So, I mean, that's what we're looking for tonight. As a corollary to that, you guys have given us some instruction to look at some other portions of the zoning text, signage, some business uses in the different zoning districts. My sense is that unless this happens, it's a fool's errand, and I'm not sure that we're going to waste a whole lot of time redrafting ordinances that, quite frankly, are going to fail if we can't enforce them. So what we're looking for is guidance. We hope to get some guidance in terms of if you want to send it as a directive or whatever. But I think step one for us is going to be looking at the size of the district as it currently stands, trying to come up with some better language for the enabling text, both within our ordinance and that would comport with the state statute, and then start trying to redraw the map. But that's a decision that you guys are going to have to make, and that's what we're looking for, some guidance from you guys.
Okay. Questions, comments? Jay, nothing?
Well, this was something Kat wanted us to explore, I believe, so I think Kat would have the questions or the comments.
Not at this time. I'll need to meet with actual PARB and everybody else to with your proposal. And
Works for me.
who doesn't?
Take it easy.
Thank you, Bob. Holly, Virginia Storm Management Program.
Yes. Recently, Virginia enacted legislation that requires the counties, cities, and MS4 towns to create their own Virginia Stormwater Management Program and become their own VSMP authority. This would be much in the same as that we are the Erosion and Sediment Control Authority. There are timelines associated with enacting this. I assume everybody read the memo. Because we are not an MS4 town, the town of Haymarket has the option of saying we don't want to manage our own program. We want Prince William County to manage it for us. So that is an option that I want to make sure the council is aware that we have, because in talking to the people at DCR, the fees that we get to collect through permits does not cover the cost of the program. There would be an additional cost that the town just has to bear. Some counties, I have noticed, and Fairfax County, I think, they actually have a stormwater management fee to help pay for some of these type costs. Because we are also not an MS4 town, DCR has not concentrated on trying to get us on board with our own program. As a matter of fact, they said, do not even plan on meeting the regular deadline. There's a 1-year extension period that you can apply for. Just plan on applying for that. We're worried about people that are required to have programs right now. So what I want the council is to issue a directive to go ahead and apply for the 1-year extension. The information that's required is identification of the authority, accepting complete registration statements, copy of ordinances, and a funding and staffing plan. Even if we are granted a 1-year extension, we would have the option at any time during that 1 year to decide still, hey, we don't want to do this, we want the county to do this for us. Per discussions, when I'm working up the extension, if I get the directive, I would also work up a pro and con list that would give council also a better idea, along with the funding and staffing plan that would give the town council a better idea as well in terms of what type of resources we're going to have to pay out of pocket for that. So what I'm asking for tonight is the directive to go ahead and prepare the one-year extension.
Councilman Tobias.
Well, the three of us talked about this at the work session. We all kind of felt that it made sense to get the 1 year and kind of have Holly and staff do an exploratory info gathering session to find out if it's something we want to do or something we want to undertake. So if no one has any objection, I'd like to direct Holly to work with staff to apply for the 1 year extension for the VSMP authority.
Absolutely. Second.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. In section 30.8, discharging of firearm. Pneumatic gun. Mr. Tobias?
So we can just modify ideas? So basically, this came to light about a year and a half ago when the state of Virginia modified their code, and it was pointed out to us by a resident or a concerned citizen that our code no longer fell into compliance with the state code, and they were right. So we had Lisa work on a new draft ordinance, and I guess this will be, what ordinance number do you want it to be? 2012001? It's actually 2013-001.
You got it.
So ordinance number O-2013-001, an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Haymarket, Virginia, as amended by amending Section 30-8, relating generally to discharging firearms or pneumatic guns. Shall I read the whole thing?
You don't read the whole thing.
All right.
That's just
As
a
printed.
reference, Yeah.
Here you go. So, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Dr. Bear? Discussion.
Just to note that one of the changes that we had her make from the last time we saw it was the last sentence where originally it had something to do with crossing the property lines, and we modified that to where it didn't really matter if it crossed property lines, assuming they had permission of both property owners. So that's why the last sentence was modified.
Assuming they do it safely.
Assuming they do it safely.
Yeah.
With reasonable care.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Aiken.
Yes.
Bear. Yes. Harness.
Yes.
Scarborough.
Yes.
Kenworthy.
Yes.
And Tobias.
Yep.
Great.
Mayor, before we move on to appropriations, we need to instruct the clerk to set a public hearing for the underground utility waiver for the old post office. We failed to do that
Okay. What date are we looking at?
next council meeting.
Okay. We got that, Jen? Great. And now to appropriations.
Does the PC need to have a public hearing on that too, or just is that actually holding up our construction in any way, shape, or form? How do we do
It'd be
it?
nice if the electric could back up to where if it does have, we do have to start doing here.
So why don't we do it sooner rather than later?
Let's schedule a,
Yeah, have a public hearing as soon as we can to get that, I mean,
well, that's why.
Otherwise-
Next meeting, sorry, Lisa.
why not sooner rather than later?
Okay.
I mean, let's
Do you want-
keep the ball rolling here and on the construction
How long
projects.
do we have to give notice for a public, how long is it, what's the soonest we can have a public hearing after advertising?
You have to advertise it 2 successive weeks, right?
Right. You mean before the next meeting?
Yeah.
We do an interim meeting.
I have a 3 o'clock deadline on Mondays for Thursdays, so we are pushed to next week as of today. So I would not be able to advertise until, we held a meeting on the 31st.
No point then.
Yeah, they might be waiting till
February 3rd and 4th.
Yeah.
Because of the new newspaper.
Can we advertise on a different newspaper sooner?
I could probably go on the Washington Post. That's the only other option.
Yeah, whatever.
Is that where we normally advertise by? I mean, would there be some confusion or any issues there?
Yeah,
Well,
whatever.
we're already going to a new paper because
Because
the
the
Right.
other
Yes.
other one closed.
closed.
Yep. As Dan's here waving.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll wait till our next meeting then.
For the next meeting.
Yeah. Okay. All right, moving on to appropriations.
Still nothing from Battlefield?
I touched base with Battlefield. They had not been able to get a formal, but she will have it for you folks. I did talk with her.
Was it the consensus that we were looking at splitting evenly?
I believe that was the final consensus.
Is that what the council's?
Comes to $20,244 apiece.
For each
Way
school?
ahead of you on that. Have you looked at all the proposed usage, and do they comport with the requirements of the proffer agreement? So what is our best method of having this concluded? Should they have the invoices sent directly to us for their benefit, or do we have to write a check payable to each of the organizations directly?
To each of the organizations.
So we can
We
just
don't pay
issue
the
those.
vendors.
How do we then get verification that the proper monies were used for the intended purposes so that we can document that along with the proffer agreement so that we know that the monies we gave went to
You can request some kind of
documentation?
that it was used for that purpose.
Copies of invoices.
Copies of the invoices for what was purchased?
Yeah.
Maybe receipt of this check, certifies that you'll be sending us, there's some kind of maybe like.
Copies of them. We talked about it on Thursday. I was just,
Right.
or Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever we talked about it.
Yeah.
The copies of invoices should suffice.
Okay. Just want to make sure legally that was. In that case, then I'd make a motion to appropriate to the sum of $20,244 to each of the PTO organizations for Bull Run Middle School, Buckland Mills, Tyler Elementary, Reagan Middle School, with the condition that upon receipt of goods as enumerated in their proposals to the town, they will supply the town with sufficient evidence to document, be it purchase orders or receipt of goods, so that we can document that appropriately for our proffer agreement.
Second.
Motion's been seconded. Any discussion? Have a roll call vote, please.
Aiken.
Yes.
Bear.
Yes.
Harness.
Absolutely, yes.
Scarborough.
Yes.
Kenworthy.
Yes.
Enterprise.
Yes.
Great. All right.
Thank you, Gordon.
You're welcome.
Okay. We can skip, I think, all the way down to F. Erosion Sediment Control Inspection Services.
We have different proposals we're looking at. Do we need to discuss this in closed session, or can we discuss this in open session?
I think we can take staff's recommendation on this. We normally would. And I believe staff had a recommendation of which,
The first one, I think.
was it Soil Consultants?
The concern with, the town continues to pay for, sometimes, if there's no site plan review with soil conservation, we have to pay a flat rate as if a site plan were reviewed on an annual basis. And that's to keep their budget in line. But as in this year and last year, we paid for, last year, we did pay for no review site plan. So Jean had been working on this mostly, but we did get two proposals. I got one from Angler, and I got one from, town manager had gotten one from Soil Consultants. Soil Consultants is also performing inspection services for the town of Dumfries at this time. So that's one big plus on their side. They also have the capability of handling the Virginia Stormwater Management Program that we're getting ready to have managed. So, and I believe Angler does too, and the Conservation Board may also. We have not talked to them about it. But the big thing with Soil Consultants is the fact that they can handle the building inspections as well.
Where the others could not.
Not that I'm aware of.
Is anybody in the audience from Angler or Prince William? Right. The question was about handling inspections. That's something that obviously...
Building officials?
Yes.
Inspections?
Right.
No, we do not.
Okay.
At this point, based on staff's recommendation, I'd like to have our town attorney enter into contract negotiations to retain Soil Consultants, Inc. For all of our erosion and settlement control inspection services going forward, and have a contract brought back to council at the February 3rd meeting for review.
Second?
All right. Any
Board meeting?
February 4th. Yeah, February 4th.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Unanimous. All right.
What would you like us to do in the interim since we've expired?
Do we have any inspections that need to be going on?
Yes. Any land disturbing activity should have. I'm not sure of the exact requirements of when inspection should be, but as of right now, we have no inspection.
But do we have any land disturbing activities currently?
Yes.
Wait.
Sure,
Don't-
first. Pursuant to, why don't we just have Lisa fast track that?
Yeah, and we could
And
have it signed.
Provided that she works out of the contract amenable, she and yourself work out a contract amenable to the town, go into the observation that the council will probably approve it. And go ahead and retain Soil Consultants.
Yes, ma'am.
There's a 3-month notice for discontinuing our services
There's this in the contract?
on either side. It's
Okay.
3 months.
Well, it looks like then...
That was the second part of my motion, or the next part on a note here would be to notify Prince William County that we would not be continuing their services effective the end of March.
Okay, so it looks like we at least have...
And we'll
Yeah,
set it up as necessary.
Okay,
Okay, I was under the impression we had no coverage right now.
okay.
There we go.
There we go. Okay,
Great.
all right. Thank you, and thank you.
So we no longer need to fast track it?
Well, no, because now we can use Prince William County, but at the same time notify them that we're canceling our agreement.
Except for just the one service that they couldn't provide, if we needed to have that. Okay. Quarterly appropriations.
What about the Zoom? Where are we at? Quarterly appropriations.
Page 60. Back to page 70.
Yep.
It's pretty much all spelled out here in that our quarterly appropriations are not necessary. Apparently, we need some more money for Mr. Dively. So that money will come separately from a separate motion. But third quarter 2013 fiscal year appropriations in the amount of events 1875, museum 171571, operating 77,820.80, public safety 2440 4850, public works 32,372.25, staff wages and benefits 197.4450, and town owned property of 86,418.50. To appropriate that going forward effective immediately.
I'll take that as a form of motion. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I kind of whispered that form of the motion part, sorry.
We're all good. All right, any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Aiken?
Yes.
Bear? Yes. Arnold? Yes. Scarborough?
Yes.
Henwick?
Yeah.
And Spice?
Yes.
Great.
In addition, in order to settle up and come to terms with Mr. Dively on our streetscape property acquisitions, we need to appropriate an additional amount of $2,500 to pay for his services, and that money would come out of the streetscape expenditures line item. So moved.
Second.
Motion's been second. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Bear?
Yes.
Arnold? Yes. Scarborough?
Yes.
Henworthy?
Yeah.
And Spice?
Yes.
Great. All right, is that for appropriations, I think?
Yes.
Great. Move on to department reports. Police report, I think, Deputy Chief. How are you, sir?
Good, how are you?
Excellent, thank you.
One thing I have is we have a new hire today. His name is Jason Davis. So he's fresh out of the academy. He replaced Officer Story. I guess everyone knew we lost him to Orange County. So it's going to be a couple more weeks before we'll be rotating around because he has to be with someone during his FTO training.
Okay. All right.
Any questions?
Any questions?
When's his start date?
I'm sorry?
When's Mr. Davis' start date?
His start date was today. We actually have two J. Davis, so keep that in mind if you call the office. There's two of them now, a Jacob and a Jason.
No issues as far as, did you have enough money for, I think, what was it, vests or something to have these guys equipped?
The chief has got a letter in, and I'm not sure about that. He's got a letter in somewhere on the vest.
Okay. I look over to Steve, I know
Well,
that
Steve and I
we're
talked about it after the meeting in the work session. The vests are a separate issue, but the other stuff, Steve and I talked about it after the work session, looked at the budget, and
Uniform.
not to say he had his marching orders, but he's got information to now take back to the police department and discuss that.
Okay, great. Yeah, his uniform, I
She
think.
has some information.
They're exploring two different avenues to get the vest. One is a grant, and the other is a civic organization that their foundation is meeting this month, and they may donate the vest.
Yeah.
That's right. Those uniforms covered, the vest, it sounds like it's in the works.
Right. That handy. The one that just expired. The erosion people. Can we have the current one that just expired?
Any other questions for the deputy chief?
Just a statement of a thank you for stepping up your cut-through patrols
Yeah.
here at Town Hall as well as that Long Street that has been noticed and it's very much appreciated.
Yeah, you're welcome. Working on it. It's a lot of traffic here.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay.
Real quick, Mayor Ruth, we're going to have to go back and revisit something. I just had instructed the clerk to go pull the Prince William County Soil and Water Erosion Settlement Agreement. Since it's expired, I'm not sure we actually have a 3-month open-ended contract with them, so to speak. So we got to look into that real quick.
Could we extend it? Didn't we extend it like some type of...
We need to look at the contract. So we'll just, we may have to go back and revisit our instructions to the clerk on that, based on her pulling the contract for me here in a second.
Yeah.
But unless it specifically dictates that, we may not be obligated to.
We'll see what we signed up there for. Museum report, I think we saw the...
She's following her insurance claim. That much I can tell you.
Yeah. We'll pass over that for a moment. Can we go to your treasurers?
No news is good news when it comes to the treasurer's report. Everything's going right along. We don't seem to have any shortcomings or any issues there. The only case for cause for small concern would be what Steve brought up at the work session in regards to equipment necessary and uniform maintenance and such like that for the new hires in the town for the police department. But from my rough estimates, it looks like the bulk of that can come from other avenues in their own budget line items. And if necessary, we can deal with that in February. But other than that, there's nothing really out there screaming that we need to pay particular attention to at this point in time. Everything else seems to be flowing right along.
Okay. Great. Kind of go to town engineer's report while we're saving time here.
Just so you know, I'm working with VDOT about re-advertising the enhancement project. If you'd like detailed information on the bid, the engineer's estimate, I'm more than happy to give you that in closed session.
Okay.
The other thing is there is a grant available for the enhancement project. This grant is specifically for projects that have already received enhancement money and need money to finish. I was hoping to have some dollars filled in for you for tonight, letting you know how much we were going to apply for, but just due to the timing, I haven't had a chance to do that, and it's due February 1st. So I do plan on submitting it February 1st, and I'll tell you in February how much it is that we're applying for. Basically, we're applying for the shortfalls in the two projects. and both the current construction project and then to be able to do future construction on the Hairover property, which would also include the work that we were just talking about with the Villages of Haymarket Phase 2. If you are granted the money, there is a 3-year time limit on it. So if we do decide to move forward with the final phase in front of the Hairover property and the villages, we would have to move swiftly and not prolong it the 12 years that this current phase has gone on, or we would lose the money. And I do want to let you know, in terms of the pedestrian improvement project, which is also known as the Connolly Money Project, we are the shortlist committee is meeting next week to pick firms to shortlist interview and set parameters for the shortlist interview.
Wonderful. Great. Good news. Okay.
Questions?
Yes.
The new money, the new grant that you are anticipating that we should probably apply for with a 3-year time frame, does that have the same 80/20 reimbursement
Yes.
amounts as the current? That's all I needed to know. Thank you.
All right. Back to the museum report. I guess we all see the thing, and maybe you just give us an update where we stand.
I have filed a claim with VML. They have contacted me and given me some information that I needed clarification on a deductible. They're saying about $25,000 deductible for flood, but I did not have that with the last claim that I had with flood. So they're researching what the difference would be, because I'm not even sure this is flood.
Yeah, you would think it'd be a roof leak or...
Yeah, so
because it was inside drywall damage, right?
I believe this is going to take an adjuster coming out, taking a look, because we really don't know what happened.
Right.
I have met with FEMA for Hurricane Sandy damages, which our light poles definitely qualify for that. However, FEMA asked that I make an insurance claim, and this is just all bolted into one.
Okay. And didn't we have the police station took on some water, I believe? Am I remembering that incorrectly?
I'm not aware of it.
The basement flooded or something during that period of time? Deputy
It's a
Chief?
dirt basement, I'm sure it did.
Deputy Chief? The police station during Sandy, did that take on some water, if I remember correctly?
I'm sorry?
The police station, did that take on water during...
Yes.
Was there any damages or monies that we expended to clean up that mess? You guys just...
No, I'll do that myself.
Well, there you go. While you're on duty?
While I was on duty.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Good job.
Yeah, well, great.
So I'll
Okay.
give you advice on how you make out with the insurance company, what the determination is going to be for the deductible.
Okay. All right. You want to probably add a town planner's report. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's going to be a busy time in the spring. We have several projects in the pipeline. You may have heard Sheets is coming in. They're proposing to raise the current building and rebuild entirely and consolidate their 2 fuel stations. Hopefully, they've already gone, or will be going to the ARB, I think, again, for final approval next month. And hopefully, by early summer, they'll be starting construction. McDonald's has also come in asking to reface their building. There were some suggestions out of the ARB on how to approach it, so hopefully they'll come back with something that's a little more keeping with the look of the town. We also, you've seen some emails, correspondence from Total Turf Sports. They submitted a preliminary site plan today to redevelop the Durham property. They're proposing an indoor soccer rink, so we are beginning our review of that. It goes to the Planning Commission and the Town Council. I believe the applicant has contacted you directly about trying to do temporary occupancy, so that'll be for the council's decision whether or not to look at that. But right now it is in, we'll begin our review, and once we've completed our comments, we'll send it back to the applicant, and then once it's ready to go to the commission, we'll put it on the commission's agenda. So,
okay.
The ice rink is changing its development program somewhat, so they should be coming back in with some amendments. If you do get a chance to go down there and take a look, I'd suggest you do so. It's a neat facility. So they've also submitted their finals, or the as-built for the Piedmont Tire and Auto in the front. So starting to see some renewed interest in the Winterham property. and also in Robinson's Paradise. We talked to some folks who are interested in looking at those properties. This tying in with all the streetscape that we're doing and the Route 66 widening and the hospital coming open, it's going to be an interesting year to say the least. So be happy to answer any questions.
Any other thoughts? Have we heard about Chick-fil-A?
No more about Chick-fil-A. One of the hurdles right now is for some reason our ordinance, we limit the number of stacking spaces we have for the drive-through. As you know, right now, McDonald's backs up onto Washington Street. Usually you have, there's a maximum. Usually you have a minimum to get people off the street. We have a maximum for some reason. I think at the time it was written it was to preclude other fast food restaurants from coming into the town. But we're looking at a zoning text amendment to correct that for McDonald's, and that would also address Chick-fil-A if they chose to come into the Corals property.
It's on the Planning Commission's list of oopses we did fix.
Okay.
Oops, we did it again.
Good. Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Jay?
Revisiting the erosion and settlement services contract. Regarding the current agreement with Prince William Soil and Water Conservation, our contract officially actually terminated the 24th of October, at which time we requested, in October 2nd, Gene had requested a 90-day extension, and they granted us an extension until December 31st, 2012, with the understanding that we would have to execute a new agreement in January for fiscal year 13. It's my understanding of the terminology in the contract and from Lisa's review of it that contract is no longer applicable since the extension expired December 31st. And so we're not under any kind of 90 days written notice or anything like that. It terminated.
Maybe it was the original.
I've got the original. The original is attached to the extension request.
Okay.
It's my understanding that the 90 days written notice would be to terminate early. And basically it says that this agreement remains in full force and effect until the agreement is revisited and renewed annually or terminated. Well, if it expired, that means it's terminated. So
Yeah, they have the date on the front.
Okay, so
and this letter from them is dated November 20th, 2012. So my interpretation is we do not any longer have an agreement with Prince William Soil and Water Conservation District. So therefore, my original instructions to staff would be to again use the soil consultants associates.
Okay.
For any pressing needs.
Oh, I can sign that. Okay. All right. All righty.
And to still notify them that we're not going to renew.
I do open up citizens' time once more. If there's anybody who'd like to address the council, if not, then.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for reopening that. We opened the Pledge of Allegiance to the citizens' comments, and I wasn't quite sure if that entailed businesses as well. My name is Alex Jakowski, owner of Total Proof Sports, along with my fiancee, Debbie Hefty. We're asking for temporary use of Mr. Durham's facility, the 12,000 square foot warehouse that Rice Tire used to occupy. We've made a ton of adjustments based on Mr. Lowry's request. We snuck him in. I mentioned this in the email to you guys. I snuck him in when Gene was here to kind of give the once-over, see just exactly what I was up against, because I was under the impression that there was a huge hole in the side of the building still. And at some point, I don't know, the electric was even good, the compressors and all the tubing and piping and everything that went along with this facility was going to service any use, or was it going to cost me $1 million to turn it around and try and make something happen. Since then, I've been in touch with Mr. Lowry time and time again to try and I just go by your guidelines as far as the construction side of things. I was a little bit, not I want to say misled, confused in which the process went. Was it, do I get the application for the put in my application? Anyway, Marchant can attest to this. I was very confused as far as which way to go. So I've hired Dewberry and Davis initially. The individual that was handling that, the surveying portion of that, is no longer with that firm and wanted to hold my information and my paperwork hostage. Long story short, I called EMSI, got them involved. They've been, the dialogue has been open with Marchant pertaining to this. It was surveyed the day that Mr. Mayor came down and met with me. a while ago at the shop. I must apologize to Marchant for going, honestly, backwards about this, and I honestly apologize to him and to you guys as well. Mr. Durham, at least in my opinion, Mr. Durham has not been wanting to play nice with anybody in the town. I know he has told me verbatim he's thrown Mr. Lowry off the property, to which that's why I went to Gene, and when this whole inception thing came about of this indoor soccer facility, that's why I went to Gene and found Mr. Lowry and took Mr. Lowry in to see exactly what we needed. We're just asking for some temporary usage of this facility. It's complete. The construction process has been completed. Again, I apologize for it being backwards. It's synthetic grass and basically 4-foot high dasher boards, which were just attached to the steel girders that are on the inside of the facility. I owned a company that handled all the class action lawsuit from Fairfax, or Title IX, with regards to the upkeep of the facilities for Fairfax County Public Schools, which entailed 24 high schools, 9 middle schools, and so I know how it's supposed to be for children. I have 3 myself. My fiance has 4. And it's all about the kids. And we have children lined up for a league that's supposed to start at the end of January. We have prolonged training spaces and stuff. Our facility is much larger than Snyder's Baseball, and I think you guys granted, I'm not sure of this or not, but the Iceplex temporary use of something while their construction portion of the review process of things were in play, and I'm asking you guys to do the same for us, if that's at all possible. You guys are more than welcome to come down and see it any time. The police officers have been there a couple of times. Marchant, Mr. Mayor, there's nothing, any liability on my side. It's insured, and we have kids wanting to play, and that's kind of where we're at. Just begging of you guys that it doesn't...
Okay. We're willing to get a different inspector, a town inspector, now commission indefinitely.
Yeah, that was the other part.
So that we can get a final though property. Rather than waiting to be inspected, but our hands are tied as far as the inspector is concerned. So if that's necessary to grant a temporary occupancy limit, we'll do that at our own expense, just to get this process underway so we can start using this building.
All right. We thank you for your comments there. Okay. Any comments from the council here?
We don't usually comment back on citizens' time, do we?
Yep. Okay. We have more citizens like to speak?
As representative for the Ronald Reagan Middle School, the students and I would like to say thank you for the wonderful gesture and believing in us that we will do the right thing, and we will be happy to give you the receipts as soon as we get this done, hopefully early spring, so we can enjoy it for the spring season.
Yeah. Right.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Any other comments? Yeah.
Kind of reiterating what she just said, my name is Kara Gallagher, and I'm the secretary on the Tyler PTO, but also a resident of Haymarket. And we just want to give you guys a tremendous thank you, because this helps us with our computer lab, which is very, very poorly filled right now, so the kids are really going to enjoy this, and we can't wait to go back and tell everybody. So thank you very much.
That's good. All right. Well, thank you. Any other comments? If not, Lisa, can you bring us into closed session for that? And there's one, we're going to do Lisa's, right?
I respectfully request council to enter into closed session of 223711A1, discussion, consideration, interviews, prospective candidates, employment, assignment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, discipline, or resignation, specifically considering the town manager position, the town building official position, and the assistant clerk position. Also under A3, discussion or consideration of acquisition of real property or the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting will adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body. I'd add that as the leases with White Oak School, daytime playtime, excellent technology lease, the streetscape update from Dively Now, and also the Villages of Haymarket And then for, I guess, A7, we need to discuss specific items that require consultation with legal counsel, specifically Activia events contract and the Gossam invoice. And then
The construction bids,
Okay. And then under A29, the streetscape construction bids.
So you may want to do that first and ask for it.
Could we add to that, are we allowed to discuss in executive session the request for a temporary occupancy permit? Ask some legal questions about that. As far as enforcement, as far as...
Yeah, we could do the, under
consultation.
A7, yeah. Okay, I'll add that, the temporary occupancy permit under A7.
Okay.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Hopefully this won't be too long. It's 10:07. Lisa, do you want to call us back into order there?
Certification to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting by the public body. Under 223712 of the Code of Virginia. Who's going to make the motion?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
First one, second, and I'll say each of you.
Aiken.
Yes.
Bear. Yes. Harness.
Yes.
Yes.
Scarborough.
Yes.
Howard.
Yeah.
And Tobias.
Yes.
Great.
Issue directed to town clerk to advertise for our open vacant town manager position using the current accepted job description to advertise into whichever form she sees fit to recruit the best municipal government candidates.
Have a motion on the floor?
That's just a directive.
Oh, sorry.
If there's no objection.
No objection.
Issue directed to staff and our town attorney to enter into lease negotiations with White Oak School pertaining, as discussed in closed session. Any objections?
No.
Do I have more?
Daytime, playtime.
Directed to the town attorney to work with staff to communicate with the former tenants of the school building, daytime, playtime, and explain to them what our requirements are for them being allowed out of the lease effective January 15th, 2013, and any monies thereof to work with them to come to a resolution. To exclude any late fees or penalty amounts that have been charged previously. That's it, right? But, I mean, it's probably daytime, playtime. Direct staff to advise pertaining to the invoice from Gossam and Costello that council does not see it necessary based on staff's arguments to extend a further $180 payment for the work done to hang the wreaths and banners. Our basis for that is that the job took considerably less time last year, and the job was the exact same this year, so we don't understand the added cost, and therefore don't believe we should be responsible for it. You still with me, Jen? Directed to staff to come up with a list of jobs and/or chores that a public works department would be in charge of. For instance, minor snow plowing, street cleanup, hanging of wreaths, banners, minor maintenance needs that the town has in the past contracted with a local company, and put that together for council's review via email with the intent of advertising for that to become a contractual obligation with the town for a company. Or however that sounds right.
Not
Do
an
you need
appointment.
to give Lisa directed for the trademark issue?
Not an appointment issue. I'd like to direct the town attorney to issue a cease and desist order, as well as file a formal letter of complaint with the trademark attorney's office in regards to pending trademarks for things that could interfere with our existing trademark of Haymarket Day. And finally, make a motion pursuant to tonight's discussion for the Villages of Haymarket Phase 2, the final subdivision site plan dated January 7th, 2012, as agreed to by the applicant and staff and our engineering and planning department, as well as our attorney, as recorded in the draft motion, which I'm not going to read. The final being, during the open session, the applicant had suggested a escrow sum of $7,000 for construction of the widening and streetscape improvements along Washington Street. They have agreed to a construction escrow in the amount of $10,000 for that, and such escrow will be paid at the time of construction bonding for the subdivision site plan. So therefore, I move that pursuant to all of those recommendations or requirements, Town Council approve the subdivision plat titled Villages of Haymarket Phase 2, prepared by KDL Group LLC, dated May 12th, sealed November 30th, 2012, and its associated deed of declaration, subdivisions, easements, supplementary declaration, and vacation, expressly conditioned upon the following: recordation of all plats and documentation in form and substance as approved by the town attorney, and payments and costs of all fees and expenses due to the town, and the foregoing two conditions be completed and satisfied within 180 days of the date of town council approval, otherwise to be said to be void and of no further effect. I guess I should have read that.
Second.
Motion's been seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Aiken.
Yes.
Bear.
Yes.
Harness.
Yes.
Scarborough.
Yes.
Cameron.
We
Do we need
audit.
to amend the directive we gave them earlier about the new soil people, about its...
Yeah.
Yeah, there's two other things.
Okay.
That's one of them, you're right. Revisit the directive earlier on the Prince William soil, the soil settlement erosion control specialist, to, during contract negotiations, to discuss and negotiate with Lisa for inspection services as well, for building inspection services. And lastly, for staff to conduct the town's financial auditor and ask them to conduct a cursory yet semi-detailed review of the town's financials from July 1 through December 31st, 2012.
Good night.
Thanks, Mike.
That's it? Did we cover everything? Wait a minute.
I don't know if we need to cover what we discussed about the additional staffing person. Or is that something we do?
That's just offline.
That's
You can do that
offline.
offline.
And that's the only other thing I
The
had.
temporary building.
Oh, temporary, correct.
Temporary use. There's nothing to discuss there. Just to disclose, prior to entering into closed session, the request that was submitted by Total Turf Solutions, et cetera, they asked me about their temporary occupancy and what council would probably do about that, and I explained to them that it is the normal policy of council to wait for staff to review the plans and to submit their recommendation to the Planning Commission and then to us. So at this point in time, I did not believe that council, unless someone wants to go the opposite direction on this, council had any plans to fast track that, and that hopefully we'd be able to talk about it more February the 4th.
I guess for the record, the official application was just submitted today.
Today.
With all fees and...
It was this afternoon.
Okay, all right.
And for the record, that they have been, this has been going on since September. And the
No temporary
application,
occupancy.
and the application and fees were put in today.
Okay. All right. I think we could streamline this. Council members' time. Steve?
Nada.
Rebecca?
PC was covered with Bob here.
Great. Kat?
ARB was covered with Marchant, bringing up McDonald's and Sheets. I have nothing.
Great. Mary Lou?
Nothing.
Milt?
Move to adjourn.
Jay?
Withdraw your motion, by the way.
I'll withdraw.
Thank you. The only thing that I have is kind of the standard way that we're operating business right now, and with Gene's departure, kind of have tried to put a lot of these things sort of kind of on David's shoulders, and quite honestly, there have been some things that have slipped. So it would be my request that council direct staff that going forward immediately, should they have a matter that comes to their attention that would be something that they need advice on, that they can feel free to communicate that to any council member, and that the council member's responsibility is to communicate it to the rest of the council, and allow any council member to kind of step in and help fill the shoes vacated, because David has a full-time job, everybody here has a full-time job. It's not fair to ask David or any one of us to kind of step in and become the quasi-town manager. So if Jennifer or Sherry, or if Sherry has a budget or money question, she's obviously going to come to me. If they have a planning commission question, they're obviously going to go to Rebecca. But instead of just saying, okay, David, you got to handle all this, just choose your best person and direct it there. CC everybody, because we can talk about this stuff via email. We're not making big decisions. We can talk about this via email. There's nothing wrong with using email. And just try to streamline, because there's been a few things that have been dropped that we shouldn't be dropping.
Agreed.
Does anybody have a problem with that?
Nope. Absolutely not.
And now the most famous motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I'm seconding it.
He wanted the first one.
You going to call for the vote?
Aye. See that teamwork? You didn't even have to call for the vote.
Good night, already.
No.
Good night. Get yourself some dinner and a cold beer. Good night. Bye. Sweet dreams.
Yeah, we will, based on her lease negotiations with him. I mean, she sounded like they're ready to do it. Right. So we'll work with Jen on that, and I'll talk to Jen tomorrow. I'm doing nothing after I get my cash adjusted, so.
Make sure we have quarter contacts.
Good night.
Mr. Nice, I have to go to court, jury duty again. Yay.
I hope they get that straight.
So do I, because going to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning sucks.
Especially when you get it before. Oh.